All right, I'm going to use the microphone because I know we have a virtual option as well. Otherwise, I would not be, just be talking to you because I have that not know how loud I talk voice and start yelling when I don't mean to be. I will try not to do that today, but thanks y'all for being here. And we're gonna kind of jump in because I know we took a little bit of extra time in the speaker who was phenomenal and really kind of get you going. But my name is Jim Allen, and I am the principal at the L&N STEM Academy. By show of hands, how many of you guys have been to our building before? All right, awesome. So there's a lot of people who haven't been, and that is even better because those that have been there have probably heard me talk, or my predecessor, if it were more than 5 years ago, Becky Ash, who has been around doing a lot of work with TSIN. And this is Brooke Carter. Brooke, you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Brooke Carter. I'm the physics and astronomy teacher. I'm also the new lead of our physics, mechanics, and engineering school, and the coordinator for our what we call the Idea Factory, which is just a makerspace.
Not just a makerspace. We'll talk about that a little bit too. But just to talk a little bit about what we're gonna do today, we're gonna talk about how we have evolved as a school and how we can, and you guys can, take what you're doing to the next level through some different partnerships and thinking a little differently about what you do in your buildings. So really long title, but really what we're gonna be talking about are a couple things on how we got there as a school, what we're gonna be doing, why we made the change that we've made over the last couple of years, what we've seen in that, and then administratively, how wonderful and scary it is to hand that off to other people. So just we'll kind of get a gauge of the room. How many local building administrators do we have in here? So principals, assistant principals, okay, central office, okay, one, teachers. Awesome, awesome. It is usually the opposite in these, so this makes me really, really happy. How about business people from the private sector? Anybody? Okay, well, we'll be talking about that stuff as well. So, then at the end, we'll spend a lot of time on the Q&A part because to me, that's the most useful thing when we're able to network and ask each other questions and get some things out of this. So, a little bit about who we are. Our school is in downtown Knoxville. It is right on World's Fair Park. It is in an old train station. It is a beautiful couple of buildings, almost 120 years old. Again, beautiful place to have school, creates an awesome culture. Just walking in the door. On the administrative end, those of you that have to maintain a building, imagine maintaining a 120-year-old building built on, I would assume there's water everywhere by the amount of things that I find with water on them in the driest months of the year. But being able to maintain a 120-year-old train station as a school is a bit of a nightmare, but we wouldn't trade it for anything. So we are a standalone magnet high school, a STEM magnet. Our students are admitted via a blind lottery. So the students apply, and then it is a genuinely blind lottery that we are given our list of students then. We are a regional high school, so not only do we serve Knox County, we serve 9 surrounding counties as well. And so those counties get a very small number of students in the school, but that is something that makes us unique. We are the only regional high school currently, public high school in the state. And then just some things that we're pretty proud of as a school and what we do as a blind lottery on how well we've done academically. So again, this is me, and I always put this up here as, and you will see on Brooke's slide that she yelled at me a little bit about hers when I made these. But this is my family, my boys, and my wife, and I put 3 wonderful-ish kids. I like to say sometimes 2 of them are great, most of the time, and you don't know which 2. If you met the 3, you'd probably be able to identify which 2 are the good ones. But I've been in this job for, I guess it'll be 20 years next year, was a math teacher for a long time, high school math teacher, and have been an admin for, I think this is year 8 or 9. I also like to put a couple of things up there, and really just one on there right now. I am easily distracted. So if I get off track, I'm sorry. I'm apologizing up front, and I say that feel vulnerable enough to ask questions today. Don't think that anything you're asking is stupid. I say stupid things all the time, and we've still had success as a school. So feel free to ask dumb questions. Brooke would tell you, Katie, who is in the back here as our room monitor, worked with me. We say dumb things all the time, and it's not a bad thing. So you'll see these nice, wonderful pictures of me and my family, and this is why Brooke got mad at me. Because I said, hey, send me a picture, and she didn't know really what for, and she said, use the school picture, and then I just wrote what her job is, and so I got in a little bit of trouble today. But Brooke, if you want to talk a little about your history, education, things like that, a little background.
Yeah, so I'm kind of a newer teacher. This is only my 5th year teaching. So I went to University of Tennessee, go Vols, for both undergrad and grad school. So I got my undergrad degree in physics, decided I wanted to teach, so I did sort of a job embedded program at UT. So I started teaching at STEM. So that is the only school I've taught at. But it's been great. Started teaching physics and astronomy there. I do a little bit of engineering now, some like STEM/engineering on top of all of that. I also am the coordinator of something we call the Idea Factory, which is not just a makerspace. It's very much an open makerspace. So it's basically as long as there's an adult in there, any kid can come in there and kind of use whatever they want as long as they're being safe. We obviously have safety procedures for the tools, but we have multiple 3D printers, we have resin printers, we have laser cutters, CNC routers, we have a variety of hand tools, power tools, multiple types of like massive like saws and drill presses and all these things on top of all of the supplies that kids might need to build things. So that's something that I've been working on growing the last few years. We also do a lot of outreach. If any of you are in the Knox County area or the surrounding areas, we go to a lot of like elementary STEM nights and sort of show off things that our kids have built. I am also the new school lead for the physics, mechanics, and engineering school that I think Jimm is going to talk about a little bit more about what our schools are within the academy structure. Only other thing I can say is I have a dog, if you like dogs. She's a pug. I named her Marie after Marie Curie because I love science. But yeah, that's kind of
Yeah, no, definitely. And Brooke has been an awesome person to work with over, I think this is my 4th year as the head principal, and I'd been there as an assistant prior. But Brooke is really, she's one of those, as a principal, you have those teachers that you have to be like, just stop. You have enough on your plate. Don't take any more. Takes on like 5 preps a year, and then when you say, hey, maybe we should cut back, no, I really like this. So wonderful people to have in your hand, to have in your roster of teachers, do great things. But Brooke has been an awesome asset for our school. And we also have in the back Katie Rosenberg, who is our room monitor, and she is our librarian, media center person, helps with research, teaching courses, is also an incredible asset to the school as well. So I'm a very lucky guy to get to have them to work with. So talking about what we do and what we've done, so I guess in 2019, we started to have a talk about, okay, we've been really successful as a high school. We have done a lot of great things, some of them by chance, some of them by design, but we've done some really unique and wonderful things as a school and had a lot of success. But we started to say, okay, that's not going to be good enough. What is the next step for us? And so in 2019, took a visit out to Stanford to the D school out there because that is kind of the base and the foundation of everything that we do. And through conversations out there, we started to talk about, okay, computer science is the future of everything that we're going to be doing. Every part of every job embraces that. So we started to say, what would it look like if we had every kid in the 9th grade start out taking a computer science foundations course? And through those conversations, we kind of just said, all right, let's give it a try. So every kid as they came in that year took computer science foundations and STEM 1. So you're already mandating 2 courses along with grad requirements. So it is a big change for a school because then you start to have to think about staffing and so on. So we jumped into it that year, diving deep into computer science while still having some discussions of, well, if we're trying to gear kids towards STEM careers and really refocus what that looks like as a school, and we want to jump into computer science, what does that look like? And we started to have these conversations, and then in March of 2020, you all know what happened, and things kind of got blown up. And I will say, if anybody else in here was a first-year principal when that happened, that was wild to be like, yeah, things are going great, and then, oh God, we're just not going to have school for 3 months or 2 months, whatever it was. So pretty interesting time there. And so in 2020, we started to discuss those possibilities. The COVID happened. And then in 2021, this is where we really launched into some of the more, some of the meat of what we were doing. And I say that we took a strategy of sitting down with people and saying, okay, we as a school want to make a change and make a big impact beyond what's happening in just the typical classroom. And so we said, how do we figure out what that looks like? And so we sat down with our leadership team and started to say, well, why don't we ask the people it's going to impact? And it was literally kind of that simple as we started. And so we said, okay, we need to ask students. Makes sense, right? We need to ask parents. We need to ask alumni. We need to ask teachers. So we sat down with these groups of people and said, what has STEM been for you? What have you liked about it? What have you not liked? And what should we be preparing people to do? And as we did that, we started to realize that one of the most important pieces that we weren't asking was to our community outside of just the L&N STEM. So we're talking about our business community and our government. And we started to have some questions about what should a school provide? And if we are a STEM school, what should we be providing to those industries? And through that, our idea of having a pathway for students to really dive deep into something was born. And through that, 4 schools were created. We have we'll talk about those in a minute. But what I will say, and I don't know if anybody was here last year as we talked about it, we kind of talked about the structure of those meetings. But what we did, and I think Brooke was a part of it, and Katie might not have been here yet, but what we did was gave every teacher a half a day off. We took them to a facility outside of our building. We just talked to a community partner and said, hey, would you donate a space for us? We'll provide coffee, food, things like that. But we had just a 6-hour ideation session where we said to the teachers, what should we be? What should 10 years from now look like in education? To gather all that information. And so as an administrator, it's probably the most valuable, although exhausting days of my job, where you're really just taking in 6 hours of ideas with very creative people who are invested in what you're doing. But just it's probably one of the most valuable things I've ever been able to do. And through that, we were able to say, here are the things that students need to be able to do by the time they graduate high school. On the business and community end, it was meeting with the mayor, meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, meeting with local large industries and saying, what kind of workers, not what do you need right now, what are you going to need in 10 years? Where is your industry going? How can we better prepare kids to get there? We know that a lot of our kids are going to be going into college after high school, so we started to talk to the universities about that structure as well as what skills do our kids need before going to the university, before going to work? So these conversations of how do we create some STEM pathways turned into a very deep conversation with literally hundreds of people about what our school can and should be. And so out of that were born 4 schools. They're all STEM-oriented, but in those schools we have the computational science and cybersecurity, physics, mechanics, and engineering, advanced inquiry and research, and design thinking. So those are our 4 schools. The first class of students that are entering into those schools is finishing up their 9th grade year right now, and it's been a big success. We'll talk about that here in a second. So this is kind of what it looks like now. And what you'll see are these fun logos we've had redone. We've done some branding and things. But below each one of those is an industry partner. And I say that we understood that what we were doing was going to have to involve these people and that we couldn't do it alone. All of these are have at least a hand in Knoxville somewhere. So you've got CGI, who is a worldwide organization in IT, who has an office that just opened up in Knoxville. University of Tennessee, turns out, has a big campus in Knoxville. Battelle, ORNL is outside of Knoxville. Battelle manages ORNL. We know we needed to work with them as a large science facility. And then Pat Nome Promotions is actually a local company that we are working with in the design thinking end. So these are all 4 companies, and what we're doing here is not asking these people for money when we do it. We're asking them for time and talent, but we're asking them for input. Help us design curriculum. If things in the industry change, keep us abreast on it. They love being able to talk to you about what things are happening and what they're going to need because they're trying to create a pipeline of people to be able to employ after they leave. So it's the exact opposite of, I guess, what we all traditionally went into education doing and saying, here's what kids need to know. We're going to teach them what that is without any sort of outside input. It takes a lot to step out and say, you know what? Tell us what they need to know. We're going to change what we do based on what you tell us. So you have to be able to trust what that is. So the reason we did this change, even though we've been successful, was we said, you know what? We set the bar high in what we were doing, but all the other schools were getting closer to what we're doing. We were one of the first that first cohort of STEM designated schools. We're proud of that. We were proud of what that is, and now we have 116, 117 schools. That's incredible. So what do we need to do? Turn it up a notch. We need to do something even bigger. Try new things. Try to be different. The world around us is changing, so we have to evolve, and we can't be content in what we're doing. And that, if I can get anything through any principal's head that I talk to, is constantly change, constantly evolve, and constantly innovate. If you're ever content with what you're doing and being successful, then you're not going to continue to evolve. You're not going to be innovative. Innovators can't be content. So, starting with leadership, and I say this, and I know we have a lot of teachers in the room, but this is for teacher leaders, administrators, everybody in it. Leaders have to have that vision and initiate the change within the building. They have to sell the vision, so you have to get others to buy into it. If you're a teacher leader and you've bought into it, be the person that's selling that to the other teachers in the building, because you guys are going to have a much greater impact than your principal is, I promise you. If you're here, more than likely you're probably a teacher leader within the building. As an administrator, say yes. When an idea is posed, don't come up with why you shouldn't do it. Just say, why not? Let's try it. Brooke, have you ever had an idea and brought it to me?
Have I ever had an idea and brought it to you?
Yeah.
Every other day.
And rarely is there ever a no. Every once in a while, you might be like, oh, God, no, we can't do that because someone will get hurt. But as a principal, you have to say, absolutely, why not? Let's try that. And we have tried things, and they have failed miserably at times. But some of our greatest things we've done have come out of those things of, what if we just let kids build whatever they want? What if we invest thousands of dollars in equipment, fully knowing they're going to break it, they're going to use it for personal things, they're going to probably hurt themselves at some point? And I know we're acknowledging that ahead of time. That's not always something people want to do. But the great things that'll come out of that, through something like the Idea Factory that Brooke runs, and just us taking a leap and saying, it's a $20,000 grant that we got, we're investing it in it, and I'm going to step back and let kids mess around, has grown into a complete engineering program at the school with a now awarded almost $600,000 to revamp the entire thing. So it grew from, why not take a chance, to somebody giving us $600,000 to make it bigger and better and more fun. So those are the kind of things you have to take a chance in doing. The other part is, once you've got something like that, stick to it and run everything through that lens. Is it something that we should be doing based off of this? And then as an administrator, let the teachers, community students, and families own the vision and step back. They will take the idea and run with it and make it way better than any leader in the building is going to be able to do. So, Brooke, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about the teacher end after we talk about that kind of challenge the first year, what that looked like. So the first year we were doing this stuff, before we jumped in and having all of these partners, things going, our challenge was very simple. Every teacher in every subject have one person come guest speak in your class or virtually or whatever it is at one point during the year. Not the most difficult task in the world, okay, to just say, hey, find somebody. And then we even said, if you don't have somebody or want to find somebody, we have somebody who will find that somebody for you and put them in the room. So not a huge task. From that, you can see the type of people that ended up coming into the building that day. Brooke did an incredible job of that in her physics and astronomy, and I'm going to let her talk a little bit about what that looked like for her. I'll get to it, and I'll go back then.
So for me, it sort of started off, I guess 2 years ago. I got an email from this man named Tony Mezzacappa at UT. He's a physics professor there. I had known him sort of indirectly from my time there in undergrad, and he was interested in expanding a program that he had where he was doing basically physics talks to high schoolers. And so I kind of collaborated with him a little bit, and he came in that school year and did talks to basically one talk for every single one of my different levels of physics and my astronomy classes. And then this year we kind of expanded even more on that, and so he got different people to come in from the physics department, and then I've also had some other people from outside of that come in. So these are some pictures from this past year, and so on the left we have Larry Lee, who actually does some work. He's officially at UT, but he also works a lot at CERN in Switzerland. if you've heard of the Large Hadron Collider that discovered the Higgs boson in like 2012. He works on one of the particle colliders there. So he's a particle physicist. He came in. He was absolutely amazing. If you've ever met a particle physicist, they're not the easiest people to talk to. They usually talk at very high levels, but he did a great job. He really broke down sort of what is particle physics, why is it important, what is CERN doing right now to sort of open up more parts of the universe for us. And so we also had in the middle here, we have Sean Lindsay, who is an amazing astronomer and astrophysics guy at UT. He came in and did some lessons with some of my astronomy kids on sort of like how big is the universe, and some more lessons on like, do we think life exists in the universe? And that went really, really well. It was very hands-on, which is nice. And the far right is actually Matt Lane, who is a bioroboticist at UT, and he works with the East Tennessee STEM Hub, and so we brought him in to do some, basically a short little like 2-hour camp for some of our kids on AI and machine learning. And so these are just 3 of the things we've done. I've done a lot more in and outside of my classes. I've also brought in people from the military to talk about STEM in the military. We've had other people from UT, and that's just in my classes. We've had people from all over the place in basically all of our classes.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, and I think Brooke's kind of underselling what some of the stuff that she's done in there, and I say that it's become such a part of the culture of what UT is doing now that when Tony makes kind of the schedule of what people are going to be doing in some of their programming, he has almost all of their professors in that department assigned a time that they're coming to our school to talk. And part of it is the proximity to UT. We could walk across World's Fair Park and you're at UT. We understand that. We understand the benefit of that. And we're taking advantage of it. But for all of us and everywhere that we are, all of us have those kind of partners. And it doesn't mean it's just based on proximity, but people that you can reach out to. What we found out in doing this was it is very easy to get people in your building. And we know part of it has to do with some of the success we've had. Part of it has to do with the fact that we just asked. And we said, hey, you want to come in and talk? They love to. They would love to do that. Well, guess what happens once they enter your building? They have a great time. They really enjoy what they're doing. And then what else happens? They want to help more. They want to give you things. They want to give you things. They want to give you money. They want to give you time. The things that we are all wanting that we aren't asking for specifically within that. And huge things have come out of that through that relationship with the University of Tennessee that they've officially signed on as a partner with our school to be able to have direct access to our students, to be able to have our students have access to their facilities, but also to help us design curriculum. They are taking a chunk out of their time and resources to help us simply because we said, hey, would you be interested in this? That is something that anybody can do at any place, and it just takes stepping out beyond of where you are, out of your comfort zone, to kind of cold call somebody and say, hey, here's what we do, this is who we are, want to help? And rarely do we hear no. And talking to other schools that have started to branch out in this, rarely do they hear no. People want to be able to get out, they want to talk to kids, and they want to help. Let me see where we're at.
While he's doing that, I'll also add some people that I know at Oak Ridge National Lab have actually mentioned to me when I asked them to come speak. They immediately said yes, and even have said, like, people that they know at the lab want to come out and talk to high schools, middle schools, elementary schools. They just don't know how to. So oftentimes, like, I've asked, I don't think I've ever been turned down when I've asked people to come speak. I just will meet people and be like, you should come talk at the school, and they will. So if you ever meet anyone, even if it's just like at a bar on a Friday night and you find out they're like a scientist or a programmer or something, you can, 9 times out of 10, they'll be so excited to come and talk to kids. I think we forget as teachers how excited people outside of education are to share what they do with kids.
Yeah. And so for you as a teacher, Brooke, I wanted to ask, because we do have a lot of teachers in the room, what has it been like for you? Is it hard to relinquish that control of whether the planning of what you're doing, because then you're saying, okay, I can't maybe get to every single thing that I said I was going to do because I have people coming in to guest lecture on things. Has that been difficult or no?
I'll say it's actually been the opposite. I feel comfortable. Part of it's because I already know a lot of the people that are coming in. But even people that I don't know coming in, they've been really good, and Tony's been really good about making sure this happens, about contacting me well in advance, making sure that, like, I know what their plan is. I make sure that they know, like, here's sort of what the expectation is for speakers. And honestly, it's kind of a relief some days because that's one less thing I have to plan. So if you ever have, like, if you know one's coming up, it's almost like a weight off your back. That's like one less class that you have to stress about for the week. So for me, it's really nice. And it's really nice for the kids to be able to take. So oftentimes I'll tell the presenter, this is what we've covered in class so far. Like when Sean came and talked to my astronomy class, he asked, what are you talking about around that time so I can incorporate it? So we were talking about cosmology and astronomy because this was very recently. And so he incorporated a lot of the things that the kids had just learned in class into his talk. So it was really nice to be able to have what we're doing in class connected, the speaker connecting it to what they're doing, while also not having, it's not really a lot of, I wouldn't even say it's extra work. It's actually less work than just a normal planned day.
No, absolutely. And to, just because for time's sake, and I want to be able to get to some time where we can kind of a Q&A and network with you guys a little bit, some of the things that we've seen grow out of this and building these partnerships, as a leader, it's tough to relinquish that control, being like, okay, I know I'm held accountable on what testing is going to look like. I'm held accountable on ACT scores, graduation rate, all of those things. But if I know that this is going to, in the end, be the best thing for our kids, I can step back and be okay with that. You have to be able to trust people, to trust that they're going to make the right decision on it, and say yes to your teachers. That would be the other thing I'd say on it. On almost anything they're asking, as long as somebody's not going to get hurt, trust them. They're professionals. Treat them like it. They're going to do some incredible things. But the other thing, and the one tip I can give for you if this is new to you at all involving partners, is to survey your kids. Find out where their parents work. Take a look and talk to your Chamber of Commerce. See what businesses are in your community. And don't be afraid to cross lines into another community. Oak Ridge National Laboratory is not in Knox County. But guess what? They're a huge research and science laboratory. We like to think we're the best science and STEM education school that we like to think that there is. We try to be. So we think they should want to work with us. So what do? We reach out directly to them, even though Oak Ridge High School is right there. Nothing wrong with Oak Ridge High School. It's a comprehensive school. Our school focuses on what they do. So let's make ourselves a valuable asset to them by opening our door to them. From that, some of the things that have come are not only these partnerships that we're looking at, the sponsorship of these schools that we have, but we're in talks right now to create a new facility on our campus funded by these groups because they want to do something to help. Okay, so we're looking at that great things are coming for kids because we understand that we have a valuable resource in what we are as a school, in what our kids are, and in the success they have. But we also know that they have some things that they need to do, and we need to be able to provide some of that for them. So the big step is getting out and saying, what can we do for you guys? Not what can you do for us? So get out there, you have something to help them and provide for them. So I wanted to open this up to both like teachers, admin, anything, on any questions you guys might have about some of this, how we got it started, and what kind of successes or maybe failures we've had. Yeah. Yeah, so for those online that might not be able to hear, she's asking about polling the students and how we get that information. So a couple ways to do it. We do it very informally through Google Docs, a lot of times, or Google Forms, where we're sending that out to them. And you're not going to get every kid. You're not going to get all of that information, but you're going to get a large enough sample size to be able to know that the data is pretty comprehensive if you get it out there, but also it's something. And guess what? The people that are filling it out are more than likely the people that are involved in something work-wise that you want to be a part of. And so we've had a lot of success in that. The other piece that we've done there is we have a position that we stipend that was initially a classified secretarial position that we have a small magnet budget we get as a school every year, and I took a large chunk of it and took a leap by pulling resources from something else and said, I'm going to pay you this stipend. I need you to go out, find partners, find people, find where our parents are, find the industries they work in, sit and look through, even if it's looking through your SIS system, at their email addresses to see at whatever.com, that's indicative of where they're working. So then we'd research who they are, shoot them an email, cold call them. So it took an initial leap of, hey, I'm taking away money from this to give to this. But the challenge was, find me that much money your first year. That has now grown into where the district has one of these at 8 of our high schools and is growing further, and they fully fund it after that model. So now I have that secretarial position back. That person got a large increase in their salary, and now I have that piece of my magnet budget back, and that's the kind of things that happen when you just take a chance. We found people that said, hey, this is important. This guy you have is important. The business community wants him out there, so they're going to put pressure politically to make sure those positions are in other schools as well. So it's taking leaps and doing non-conventional things to dig and find people. Yeah.
I'm at a middle school, we're large, almost 1,400
Yeah.
students, 6 through 8. My problem with finding people to come in is, I need you there all day. Because if I
Yep.
personally teach agri-STEM.
Yeah.
I need you there 5 classes with agri-STEM. How are y'all working around that, or how is anyone, because no one wants to commit 6 hours to come in and see.
So what you've got to do is be willing to only have them for the amount of time they have. And then if you have to schedule somebody else for that next group, even though it's not balanced, you deal with the not being balanced part. When you get uncomfortable, make them comfortable. That's how these things start to happen. It is uncomfortable to do those things, to where Brooke might have one of them talking in a physics, let's say she has 2 sections of physics 1, that professor only has time for that one. They might only get to do that one, and yeah, that other class lost out. We find another thing for them to get to do later. But it's uncomfortable to make that leap, but it's worth it every single time.
And I'll add, that did actually happen this year. I had a different person speaking for one section of, I think it was honors physics, and it was a different person for the other section. And the kids were perfectly fine with it. They just liked having someone coming in that was in something other than being a teacher, right? They like hearing me talk about like when I was an undergrad and when I did research, but hearing someone, no matter if it's the same person that another class heard, it's just a good experience overall. So yeah, I think it's.
Well, y'all know how it is too. Like if you have kids, if you tell your kid one thing, they do not listen to any. Like your own kids, my biological kids, I could tell them something, and your dad's done a lot of really cool stuff, guys. And they could not give a damn. But if somebody who has done even an eighth of that in that field and works in that field and tells them it is the greatest thing that has ever happened, and they believe it like it's science. So one of the best things about it is getting other people to talk to your kids, because they're going to hear a different perspective on it. And there is probably not a time that, and I probably say this about Brooke, knowing she's a one of these, a lifelong learner as well, that she hasn't learned something while they're in her room teaching. Yeah.
So I do give them expectations I guess expectations is more of like a logistical thing, like where to park, where to like sign in. And then I do give them expectations about, I guess, expectations more of what they should expect. So these are who my kids are. This is what they're interested in. So I take that sort of, that aspect of teaching where you have to really learn who your kids are and what they're interested in, and I give them basically that information so that they can sort of format that to my kids. So when we had someone come and talk to one section of astronomy, there were about 2 weeks between when he came back for the other section, and he actually changed about half of his lesson based on what. So I had one group that was really strong in math, and so we did a little bit more math, whereas my other group was a little bit less math inclined. And so we focused a little bit more on conceptual. So expectations are more, so I don't really have like a general write-up. It's kind of dependent on the class they're coming to talk to. And so it's more of this is what you should expect to experience when you come in my class. Does that make sense?
And one thing I would say on that, on the able to find people, give them the least parameters on what the topic is. If it's in their field, let them talk about their field, because that's what's going to get kids excited more than, hey, I know that you're learning about this standard, so we're going to see how my job aligns to that standard. That's, again, that uncomfortable piece of stepping back and saying, you know what? We're going to let that drive what we learn and how we learn. It's our job as the teachers later to maybe figure out how to tie that in. Let them talk about what they do. That's what gets kids excited. It sparks that curiosity like we're talking about here. It gets kids pumped about something that they might not have traditionally been excited about. Great question, though. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, so for part of it, for the UT part, I did know people, but I didn't know the person who actually reached out to me, which obviously they're not going to be reaching out to everyone. But I know for some of the people we brought in, I actually have gone and done other just sort of STEM. I've gone to like conferences or gone to like STEM education events where I've just met people and will just be like, oh, you're not a teacher, you do this thing, you should come talk. So a lot of it is just as soon as you meet someone, you kind of just clock that they're someone that you could bring in.
And it's honestly sending your people out to do it and giving them the time to do it, saying, hey, I'm going to cover a sub for you for this. And yeah, it creates a hardship on us as a school. We're like any other school, we struggle to pay for things. We're a public school. And so those things are hard decisions to make, to be like, all right, I'm going to have to find a sub, first of all, which isn't easy, pay them out of this pot of money, which is dwindling. But if I know that that's a valuable thing to send this teacher to, whether it's a company that would like to have educators out for a luncheon, or if it's some sort of conference that's not in education but in that field, you have to take the chance to do it. And sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not. But again, tapping into the people you already have in your building, best thing you can do. Your teachers also, by the way, like know people in fields and they just forget that they do. Like, oh yeah, well, I forgot that this person, like we had the CEO from the Zoo Knoxville that had come in and talked to some of our students about some of the programming we're doing. And as she was in there, she was like, oh, a good friend of mine's your science department chair. We got lucky that she was there. And then we didn't think, but that's somebody's been in our school for 10 years. It was like, oh yeah, I forgot that I know her. It's tapping into that piece with your teachers, with parents, with everybody on what they do and who they know and taking advantage of it. But there is legwork up front in that piece. Doesn't cost you anything. It just costs time and searching. Yes is the answer, all of them. And that's what we said in that meeting was from our first year teachers to our veteran teacher leaders, everybody brings somebody in. So it gives that challenge to the teacher to like, all right, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone. But you have, just like you would for a student, you set the bar high and then you build up what they need to be able to get there, the supports they need. So our supports were that person that we have in the building to help them find people. Or they can come to their department chairs. They can come to whomever to help them find people to come in. But it is everybody from the beginning, from the beginning teacher who, like our PE teacher, he's a first-year teacher in a job-embedded program. So this guy hasn't even finished school, and he's teaching in his first year and has had 5 different guest speakers this year. And that was just him. He took event like what Brooke's saying. That's an entire day for him when he's able to get them for a whole day that he isn't teaching, that somebody in the field is telling them that, and he just gets to learn and listen and organize his kids. It is a huge benefit for every party involved. And so when you can find these mutually beneficial relationships, it opens everybody up to doing great things.
And I'll add really quick, for those of you that are like curious about how beyond just people that your teachers know or people that you know, one way that we've done a really good job of that is, and this is something that I think every county is going to have, is we use a lot of government resources. So we've brought in, I know our science department head, our chair, she brought in some people from like the local city that she brought in arborists, and she's done events where people who run the machinery, like that people that do like construction and things for the city, she's had those people come in. So we're not necessarily bringing in people like all these people with PhDs, we're bringing in people from all kinds of different STEM fields.
Yep.
And so reach out to your county government offices, your city government offices. A lot of those have people who are more than willing to come talk to your kids about what they do.
And we have one more question we'll get so we don't hold you all back too long.
Yeah, so I just was looking, when you spoke about at the beginning, giving them a half day or
Yeah.
to get the buy-in and generate. Can you tell me some of the logistics around what that looked like?
Yeah, so that was we were pretty, again, we have financial constraints like anybody, so we started to look at, okay, when is their plan period that day? Pick a group of 7 or 8 teachers that have that one of us. So you're only having to find coverage for half of the day, or one half of, so a quarter of the day. So one class for them. So you're cutting down your costs there. You're having subs that can cover for multiple people within them at different blocks. And so what we did was then said, hey, we reached out to some businesses we did know that wanted to help or wanted to do something, and they might just be able to give us space. And said, hey, can we just borrow this space, have our teachers come in, we meet there. If you want to talk about your business to our teachers, feel free. We'll give you some time during that, but we just want a space to be able to sit down, bring some food in, bring some coffee in. We literally just brought those big sheets of notepad paper, I don't even know what they're called, and some markers, and I just jotted things down as people talked. We had three or four questions for the entire 6 hours that we worked through. You have to be willing as the leader to let them complain about things and let them tell you the things that are wrong and hear them and work through it, but limit that to a very short amount of time and then make everything else future-oriented, everything else about the future and what could be.
So this was not the time you had the businesses come in and say what they needed to change?
Nope, that's where some of those ideas were generated from, was that initial piece where we said, let's open this up. We are open to anything. Some wild ideas. We took away any constraints we could. Some wild ideas came out of that where that ended up not being feasible, but what we're doing as a school now was birthed out of that. And in fact, one of our strongest relationships we have was because there was a new company moving into town and they were in a temporary office space and had a giant conference room that they said, hey, you guys can use this. You're across the street. Well, now that is a $20 billion company that is a partner of our school simply by us chatting with them because they were across the street. We weren't stupid. We knew that a $20 billion company was moving in, and we should probably reach out to them before anybody else does. You have to think that way as well. It's okay to come into it with a business mindset into some of those things, and you have to be able to think different than the traditional educational route of reaching people. But I wanted to put these up here. It's our emails. Email me. And we can absolutely sit and talk more. If you want to set up like a virtual meeting to talk, we do that all the time with people to help kind of lay out some of the things we did and let our mistakes be the things you don't do so that you can, kind of fine tune it a little bit and make it even better.
If you are interested in getting some of the science people, specifically physics and astronomy right now, from UT, feel free to email me and I'll get you in touch with Tony. He's trying to expand both at the high school, middle school, and elementary school level and getting more schools involved. He's also expanding throughout UT. So right now his goal is to basically pull people from pretty much every department at UT. So he's starting in the physics department and expanding out to other departments. So this is not just a physics thing. This is not just a science thing. He's trying to get STEM people and even people from, I think, beyond that eventually.
Yeah.
Feel free to shoot me an email and I can get you in touch with him too. And I'm sure that they're pretty willing to go places. And I'm sure they'll be willing to do like virtual, like Zoom calls or.
Yeah, never forget that universities, and especially in the STEM fields, are funded, big part of their funding through NSF grants, things like that. What is one thing every NSF grant has to have? Outreach through an educational organization. Be willing to say yes to them and be like, sure, do research on us. We don't care. You're going to get the benefits of their knowledge, and those always come with a lot of money that they have to spend. Let them spend it on your kids. If they're going to have to spend it on somebody, be that person and let them use their money toward you. So I know we got to get you all out of here. We're on time here. So thank you all very much, and if you need anything or want to talk, we'll be here for a few minutes. Thank you.